We have a firing in Washington on Black Friday after the Commanders took a humiliating loss to the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, Texas on Thanksgiving. But it's not the firing that we were hoping for, as it's just defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio and DB coach Brent Vieselmeyer getting the boot today from head coach Ron Rivera. But Rivera himself not getting the boot. So definitely going to be... I'm going to let you guys know what I think about these moves here in just a second and whether or not this is enough blood here after such a terrible stretch of football here for the Washington Commanders. But before we get into it and break it all down today, make sure you click that subscribe button. Usually, if you're watching this for the first time, we're usually in the studio, but today it's my day off here on Black Friday. But I made a promise to you guys that every time that the Commanders have big news, I'm going to put out a video for you guys right here on the Commanders Report. You're not going to get this level of dedication anywhere else, so make sure you click that subscribe button for Commanders coverage 24/7 for free right here on YouTube. All right, so now let's break down today's moves here after losing 45-10 against the Dallas Cowboys yesterday on Thanksgiving, after losing 31-19 to the New York Giants of all teams and Tommy DeVito 2 weeks ago. Somehow Ron Rivera is still employed by the Washington Commanders. I can't explain it. I can't understand it. But some moves did end up making their ways to the team here as defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio, who, by the way, should have been fired. He stinks, right? He is not a good defensive coordinator anymore. His defense was completely unsound. The way that this coaching staff has developed players has not been good enough. And it seems kind of like a cop-out here for the Commanders to blame the defensive coordinator, especially after getting rid of his two top edge rushers at the trade deadline, and to still put it on the defensive coordinator just seems like a cop-out here from the owner, Josh Harris, and the head coach, Ron Rivera. But Jack Del Rio deserved to get fired. I mean, that's not my issue here. There's nothing wrong with firing Jack Del Rio and even firing Brent Vieselmeyer, the DB's coach. The problem that I have here, people, is that Ron Rivera himself didn't get fired. I put it out on my Twitter yesterday. I put it in our post-game reaction video yesterday after the game. There is no reason why the Washington Commanders shouldn't fire Ron Rivera at this point. Unless they're planning on potentially keeping him as their head coach next year, which in my opinion they should not be considering that whatsoever after the rapid decline of the quality of play here in Washington. There's just no reason to keep him around if you plan on firing him at the end of the year, especially with a guy like Eric Bieniemy in-house right now as your offensive coordinator. That could be a potential head coaching option for you. If I were Josh Harris, if I were Martin Mayhew, the GM, I would want to see what Eric Bieniemy's got. If I'm planning on firing Ron Rivera and we're sitting at 4-8 and the season's already over essentially in terms of your playoff hopes, I just don't understand why you decide to just fire the defensive coordinator here. I don't understand why you just decide to fire the defensive backs coach here. Like, fire the freaking head coach if you plan on firing him. Your playoff hopes are done. There's no reason for him to be here unless you're planning on bringing him back. And I pray to God that's not what their plan is right now. So, it's definitely kind of a weird situation here. I'm going to break down whether or not I'm going to break down what I think this means for the Commanders moving forward, whether I think they're actually going to fire Ron Rivera this year here in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about today's sponsor at PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a deposit match up to $100 today. It's a real money daily fantasy sports game that pretty much when you get into the app, you see a bunch of different stats and a bunch of different players, and you just pick more or less on 2 to 6 players. And if you hit all of them, or they even have a flex option for you, you can come away winning some money. So if you know ball, you want to make a little bit of money, you can check out PrizePicks Daily Fantasy Sports Game today. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a deposit match up to $100. Now, the way that I can describe how I feel today is I feel like it's Christmas morning And I'm a kid, and I did all my homework. I did all the right things. I did my chores, and I asked for something on my Christmas list that I really, really wanted. And I know that my parents have the financial means to get me this gift, right? I feel like there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't have this particular gift on my Christmas list. But instead, all I got was one item on my Christmas list, something that I wanted less, right? And that's the firing of Jack Del Rio. The gift that I really wanted was to see Ron Rivera get fired because, I mean, there's just no reason not to. There's just no reason not to. You have Eric Bieniemy in-house right now that you have an opportunity to audition to be your next head coach. And really the only reason that I can possibly think of to keep Ron Rivera in-house, who, by the way, is going to be taking over defensive play calling duties after Jack Del Rio is fired. Big mistake in my opinion. Anyway, the only reason why you keep this guy around is if you actually think that there's a chance that he is your head coach next year. You're sitting at 4-8. This season's over. Unless Josh Harris still thinks that they can run the table here and make the playoffs at 9-8, I'm really at a loss for words why Josh Harris didn't bring in Ron Rivera to his office last night when they got back to Washington and told this man that he is fired. There's just no reason. No reason at this point. And, I'm tired of breaking it down in this way because it's not going to change. But it's just a sad situation here, man. It really, really is at this point that this franchise just can't seem to figure it out. The smart move here is to give Eric Bieniemy as much time as possible here to give him an audition to be the next head coach. Instead, you're sticking with a guy that you're probably going to fire anyways, and you're wasting an opportunity to see if Eric Bieniemy has what it takes to be a head coach in this league. It's just a wasted opportunity, and it just reeks of Dan Snyder era incompetence here. It really does. I mean, when Josh Harris took over this team, I really thought things were going to be different. I really thought that, yes, we're going to get a new stadium. We're probably going to get a new team name, and I was hoping we were going to get more organizational competence here in terms of how to run an actual ball club. Well, it just doesn't seem like that's the case right now because you just took two embarrassing losses to division rivals. One at home where you just got swept by the worst team in football, arguably, in the New York Football Giants. And then you got boat raced in front of a national audience on Thanksgiving against the Dallas Cowboys. That's unacceptable. That should be unacceptable. Josh Harris owes Ron Rivera nothing. He owes this man nothing. And he continues to ride with him. I cannot understand it. Somebody explain it to me down in the comments section why they keep this man in the head coaching chair. You've got a long week here. You've just played on a short week, which means you got an extended period of time for Eric Bieniemy to potentially take the reins here before this Miami game in week 13. There's just no reason not to do it. And, because the conditions right now are the best it's going to be to make this move and they still didn't do it, I'm not sure if they're going to do it. I don't think they're going to fire Ron Rivera for the rest of the season. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that after they get killed by the Miami Dolphins in Week 13 at home, and going into the bye, I hope I'm wrong and they fire Ron Rivera. Because, going into the bye, it's another excellent opportunity for Eric Bieniemy to be instilled. So I really hope that Ron Rivera, if we lose one more game, he's gone. I really hope that's the case, but it just seems like the conditions right now are so perfect to do it, and they still refuse to do it. And they fired the defensive coordinator and DB's coach instead. It just seems like a cop-out at this point, and it definitely seems like, for some odd reason, they feel like they have to run with Ron Rivera for the rest of this year. And I don't understand it, man. Let me know down there in the comment section. Should Ron Rivera be fired? Yes or no? It's just a weird feeling because I'm glad Jack Del Rio's gone. His defense has been terrible all season long. And after giving up 45 points yesterday, I know that one of them was a pick six, but it just seems like this isn't the right way to run a football club. And it just seems like this team that has been completely bereft with poor management ever since Dan Snyder took over almost 30 years ago, it just seems like it keeps going, man. And I really just hope that Josh Harris can take his head out of the frickin' sand, out of his ass, to be quite frank with you, and fire Ron Rivera and give Eric Bieniemy the much-needed chance that he needs to prove himself as this team's leader. All right, that's going to be it for today's show, guys. Really do appreciate all of your support. Make sure you click that subscribe button right now for more Commanders news and analysis throughout the rest of this season and heading into the 2024 offseason. It's going to be a massive offseason for this team. I'm going to be back in studio here on Sunday to kind of break down everything that happens in the division on Sunday. So I'll be back in studio here soon. Talk to you guys later. Peace.